Ivana, welcome back. So why is it we can't buy a domain name for life?
I'm not sure. I don't know. They're just the rules. You can now buy domain names. I think especially with the .com domain names, you can buy them for like 5 years and maybe up to 10 years.
Right.
But I'm not sure why you can't. Yeah,
I might start a business. I might start a business where people can have a domain name for life.
Yeah, go for it.
Why not? Yeah, it's strange though, isn't it, when you think about it? Like, we some of these things that you just talked about from a legal point of view, they're really, really interesting, because I heard a story recently where somebody had let their domain name expire and someone else jumped in and got it, and they couldn't get it back again, or they were offered it back again for an exorbitant amount of money. But that's terrible to your business, right? If you've gone down the path where you've had your business going for 5 years under a certain name
and then you let it expire. Absolutely. And I actually had something similar happen to a friend of mine. And it wasn't even that she had let the name expire. Going back probably about 8 or 10 years ago, she had a domain name and she'd been running her business under that for probably about 2 or 3 years. And then somebody came in and they said that they actually owned a trademark that related to her domain name.
Ouch.
She had to hand it over. So it's not even just the expiry of the domain name. There are other forces that sort of influence whether you keep your domain name or not.
Yeah.
So this.
I actually had some history with trademarking names in my previous life with Humaneity, and got quite intense actually, because I started a global magazine under the brand, and before I knew it there was another edition of it coming out in the United States, and using the same spelling that I created for my brand. And I went down quite an interesting path, and I just really warn people out there, because it's almost an impossible task, because you actually have, if you've got a global business, which most businesses are because they're online, you've got to go through the legal system in every single country to pull it down, right? Wow. So it's a very expensive process, and it's a very timely process as well. So yeah, be very careful. Be very, very careful on that process. Okay, back to our list. So you've got a service agreement.
The strategy call. We've done the quote pricing. I generally give people fill out a form just with a bit of information. I then issue a service agreement, and then I start working on the layouts. People also sometimes refer to it as wireframes. Wireframes is just sort of an outline of what you're going to be including on the homepage and on the inside pages. I like to go a little bit further and actually populated with images and maybe a bit of fake text, just so that people can see what it's going to look like. It's also useful if you're working with a copywriter, so that they know what the website's going to be what it's going to look like and what sort of information it's going to need to have, and they can write around that. So I do these layouts, and they're just, I think I sent you like 3 different layouts when we did the Humanity.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to this because it was fantastic, and I'm going to put it in the show notes for people to look at the different samples that Ivana sent to us as well, because it really made that part of the process very simple. Like, when you see something visually, I'm a visual guy, I need to see stuff in pictures. So once I see the different options that you gave us, it was really easy to go, that's the one, like bang, we want that one, it fits with everything we're looking for. So yeah, getting those samples was really fantastic.
And sometimes it's a process. Sometimes you go, okay, I like the design of number 1, but I like the images or the colors from design number 2, or fonts or whatever. So sometimes it's a bit of a mix and match until we with the final layout. And I generally do this for the home page only, and then the follow-on or the insider pages, they just kind of slot in with the theme of what your home page looks like, with the colors and everything else, and the fonts. And then once you agree on the actual design, that's when the website build starts to happen. So I would install WordPress, I would upload the theme, and then I would build the structure. So add all the pages and then start populating it with the content. And once that's done, then we might add extra functionality like newsletter software and that sort of thing.
Just want to say, from a customer point of view, that's the exciting phase for me, because it was like, okay, I could send this information and everything back to Ivana that she was looking for on a Friday afternoon and say, right, so you're going to have the website ready on Monday morning, aren't you? It's going to be done. So I think that's another important part of the process, is to understand the timelines required in each step of the phases, and also understand that when you get these samples and you see things visually, we all go into that panic mode of going, oh, I don't like that, I want that. But the fact is, the great thing about the way these websites work at WordPress, you can change everything, and you can change the images and put whatever you want in there, but focus on the structure of the website. I think that's the most important lesson that we got out of it, Ivana, was making sure that the structure was going to work for us and what we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is, if you don't have the structure right and you start changing links, internal links within the website, things stop working, and you get a lot of error codes and things like that. So it's best that, again, take your time and plan all the information you're going to come up with for the website. Create the pages, link them between each other, and don't change that unless you really, really have to.
It's been really interesting doing this podcast journey, because all my guests that I have on the show, they send me their website links, and they send me their social media links and all the rest of it, right? So I've got to be a bit of a private investigator and looking at other people's websites and all the rest of it. And you know what? I've been really astounded by how many links don't work on people's websites. Like, particularly the social media links. Like, I click on their Twitter or their Instagram icon on their website and it doesn't lead me to anywhere. I get the error message, which is the most frustrating thing that you can ever get, and it just turns you off, doesn't it? You go, okay, this person's not even up to speed on it.
Absolutely. You know what, the problem, where the problem lies, is people just think it's just too hard, or they don't check it and they think it's not that important. I was doing a website review for this lady, and she made the website about herself rather than for her customers.
Right.
And she liked a particular look, and I think what happened was, she had the logo in the middle of the website, and then she had the navigation on either side. And I said to her, one of the things I said, you're missing a contact page on your navigation. And she said, yeah, that would have thrown out the design, because then I would have had 3 and 4, and I just didn't like it. And I'm like, it's a contact page. You want people to contact you, don't you?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah. She said, yeah, I suppose you're right. So I better do something about it. Anyway, I checked it a year later, and the contact button's still not there. So, and I think sometimes people just think it's too hard, or they think, she'll be right, mate.
Yeah, I think that's.
But she's not.
I think that's the thing, and you're gonna talk about the cost of a website today, but I always look at it from the point of view of, what's the cost of not doing it and not having it right? Because you've just highlighted a really simple thing there about having a contact page, right? And yet it's such a massive thing in terms of, you're literally saying, I don't want you to contact me.
Yeah. But in her mind, it was more important that she has that her website looks balanced, and there's always ways around it, but that was like the most important thing in her mind, not the fact that people contact her. And I think a lot of the times I've done website reviews and people go, oh yeah, I knew that I had to do that, but I've just been too busy. And the problem is, people, if they come to your website the way you've had an experience looking at some other people's website, it actually makes you look bad.
It does.
It makes you look like you're not serious about your business.
Yep.
And look, sometimes links will stop working and things like that. And there are tools that you can run your website through, and they will show you what dead links are, especially if you've got links to other websites.
Yep. Sometimes,
they can shut down and stuff like that. So it's important that you do check it maybe every few months to make sure that there's no dead links on the website.
Good piece of advice, yeah.
Yeah, or that social media links are pointing to your social media, not somebody else's. I've seen that as well.
Yeah, we laugh about these things, but it could be someone very influential that's coming to your website to check you out. to do business with you. And it's another, we talk about our profiles on LinkedIn, we talk about our social media pages and all the rest of it. Your website is as critical, if not more critical, because it's your home base. And I had people coming to our new website, Ivana, in the last couple of hours going, wow, didn't realize that your organization was so big. And I'm going, well, it's not, but if it's giving you the impression that that's what we have, then that's fantastic, right? Because it looks creditable from that point of view. Another antidote that I'll share with you, I was speaking to a lady the other day about websites actually, and business in general, and she said, oh, no, we don't need any help. We've been running a successful business for the last 20 years. And I asked her one question. I said, how many global pandemics have you been through in the last 20 years? And I wasn't trying to be a smartass, but I was trying to say that now the business is different now. This is business everywhere is different. And if we don't have an online presence that's better than anything that we've ever done before, right now, moving forward, then we're going to be losers in the game. I can say that categorically.
Absolutely. And you know what? I actually, what I hear people say is, I don't need a website because I've got social media networks and whatever. Yeah. And I think we talked about it last time, why it's important that your website is the center of your business universe. Everything flows on from there, because you can do things on your website that you can't do on social profiles or on landing pages and things like that. And I've actually put together an infographic saying 27 reasons your website needs to be the center of your business universe. So maybe we'll put a link to that at the end of this.
Maybe we need to come up with 3 more to make it 30. No, why 27?
Well, you know what they say from
it's a lucky Chinese number. It's a lucky Chinese number.
I'm not sure. Is it? No, but they usually say 7 or 9. There should be and that was 27 reasons why what I could come up with. If you can come up with more.
Well, 2 and 7 is 9.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
So there you go.
There was something else that you said just a moment ago that I thought, I must touch on that. Mm-hmm. Keep talking. Okay. What were you talking about?
We finished your list though, haven't we? We've been through your list.
We've gone through the list of what sort of the process is of working with a website designer like myself.
Yeah.
What the steps are. Now, and I think the next list that I wanted to add is what your website designer or developer will need from you in order to create a website. So let me just check my list. So it's the business information, obviously the name of your business, the name of your company, domain name if you've registered it or what you're thinking you'd like to register. Mm-hmm. If you have a website, what are the website details? Again, link to your website. What services you will require from the web developer. Like, for example, do you need them to register the domain name? Do you need them to set up hosting, or do you already have that? Mm-hmm. Will you need e-commerce, like a shopping cart? Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. So the services that you will require, what the content that you want included on the website. And this is something that your web developer or designer should really guide you through, because there is so much to it.
Yep.
It's not a matter of just grabbing a couple of images of yourself and your family and just talking about yourself. Mm. There's actually a whole lot of information goes into the process. Okay, so the next thing that you will need to is any extra functionality that you will want on your website. Like, for example, do you want email software integrated? What calls to action you want on your website. Especially on the homepage, for example, you might have a little bit of information about a particular service or a product, and having the read more, learn more, discover more. Mm-hmm. So those are all calls to action, and you need to kind of take your customer on a journey with you. And I was just working with a client last week, and she had a website, but it was so confusing. And every time you took the next step, it didn't make sense. So, for example, some of the information was learn more. And when I clicked on learn more, it actually took me to the contact page, and I thought it doesn't make sense. So it needs to make sense. So you need to take your client through the process, whether they're buying products or whether they're hiring you for services.
Yep.
The other things that they will need is trust and credibility icons. And those are things like testimonials, case studies, before and after photos, reviews, and that sort of thing. And we will actually spend a whole session on credibility and trust. The website structure. So if you have an idea about what you want your website to look like, for example, you might want to have 10 different buttons, and then underneath you might want to have particular drop down menus. And again, it's something that you will negotiate with your developer. Any particular images that you want to include on the website, your developer will also need. Otherwise, in a lot of cases, they can source them for you.
Yep.
Other things would be like visual elements, like fonts, icons, and colors that you want. If you are, if you have specific ones in mind, or you can just let them create a website with pizzazz and let them translate that into whatever that might be.
The old pizzazz.
It's also helpful to let them know what your budget is for the project. So if you go to a web developer and say, well, my budget is $300 to create, a 20-page website, you're probably not going to get very far.
Yeah.
And the other important is the goal launch date. Now that has to be very fluid.
Yep.
It's a good idea to say, I'd like to have my website done in, say, 3 or 4 weeks' time, but don't actually plan any product launches or anything like that until your web developer has pressed the button.
If the web developer can find the button. I think most web developers are having trouble finding the button, aren't they?
We do. But just as we had it with our experience, I know I was driving you crazy, and I'm like, don't put a date on it. And you're like, no, I'm going to make it happen. This is going to be good. And I'm like, no.
You'd heard that a million times, though, Ivana. You knew what you were dealing with.
But you know what? I have a lot of respect for people who are driven and that get things done. And I have to say, working with you has been such a pleasure, because you would get back to me. I've worked with clients and it takes them months to get back to me. And then all of a sudden we got to have things done within a week because they hadn't allowed the time to get things done. Yep. So with you, it was just like I'd send you an email and I'd get a response within 24 hours, which is why the majority of the website was actually built very quickly. It's only because you've got so much information that needs to be added to it.
Yeah.
But in most cases, people won't have that. They might have, maybe up to about 10 pages. So yours was a little bit unique. But yeah, just communicating with your developer, it's important on a daily basis.
Just going back to that, I think in terms of a couple of pieces of feedback, I guess, in terms of our experience and some of the peripheral things that you may not think about, and I've still got trouble with one of them today, is my emails went into a vacuum somewhere because we turned off one system and started onto another one. And I'm actually missing still today 40 emails that went into a black hole somewhere.
Wow.
And it's because of the transition over from one platform to another. So just be careful with that when you're doing that transition process. Make sure that you've gone through all the different elements that are attached to your business
domain name
and your domain name, because if your emails are attached to your previous domain hosting and all the rest of it, you've got to make sure that you swap everything over in a synchronistic way, because it's got to match up with what's going on. So I'm not having any trouble getting emails today, but there was a period for like a few days where the vacuum opened and sucked in all these emails, and I've never been able to get my hands on them again.
Yeah, and you know what? Unfortunately, I think in your case, what happened was you had your domain name for your emails was pointing in one direction. It was pointing in another direction for your hosting. And so I generally say try to have both your emails and your hosting with the one company. And there are huge differences between the different hosting companies. I mean, you ended up choosing somebody I probably wouldn't have chosen to host, just because I find their system really difficult to manage. And so that's another thing. So that's something else that we will cover, talking about hosting. But yes, you have raised a really good point. The thing is, what happens is, when you're transferring the domain name from one company, or you're pointing it from one company to another, there's a period, and it can be a couple of hours, but I've seen it go up to about 2 days, where the propagation of the domain name from one server to another, it takes time, and your developer generally we have no control over it. It's the big bad www world out there that does it, because it has to sort of go through the website. And you knew that even when I said your website, I've pressed the button, the website is live, and you're like, I'm not seeing it. And it's because your internet service provider, whoever it is, I'm not sure, hadn't quite caught up. So things will take time. And sometimes if your hosting company, and this is what we sometimes do, is we deal with hosting companies. For most people, we host their website, so I know the system and we can fix things up really well. But if you are dealing with an external hosting company and their offices are in India, it can take a couple of days to resolve. And especially with what's happened with COVID-19, it was up to 7 days we were waiting for a response why something is not working. So you had the unfortunate experience of, where we had to deal with a company that wasn't sort of cooperating as much as we would have liked. So,
well, I can tell you now, Ivana, you should come to me, because I can give you consultancy advice about that company, because I'm the guru now on that company. I actually solved the technical problem myself with them. So
fantastic. Well, and this is what you have to do, because there's so many variables.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing, is that at the end of the day, it may not be perfect day one. And I think websites are never perfect, because they're always evolving, and you're always changing something and updating it anyway. So don't think that you're going to have a start and an end date, that everything's going to be in place, because it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, and it should never stay the same. It should always evolve. You should be adding more new content and changing things as your business change.
Now, a couple of questions before we finish up with today.
Okay.
And they are, I've just thrown them up on the screen. How much should I expect to pay for a website?
Okay, so this is a really loaded question. So there's a whole bunch of things that go into creating a website. So let's say you're starting from scratch and you haven't got anything. So your domain name is the first expense, and you're looking at anywhere between sort of $15 to say $140, depending on who you register it and what the domain name is. The next thing is hosting, and again here you are looking at anywhere between say $5 up to several $100s. And this will depend on your website. So if you've got a website and you expect there's going to be a high traffic, then you need to get hosting where your website is actually on its own server, for example. And that's going to cost you a lot more than if you are sharing hosting with 100 or 1,000 other companies. Now, I'm a big believer, you get what you pay for. And if a company is charging you $4 or $5 a month to host your website, it means, yes, it's great that you save money, but it's still a business and they have to employ people. And so if you're going to need help, and then they're going to have to source either the staff really cheaply, in which case the quality is not going to be that great. The other aspect of it is not only the customer support, but also the software that they use. And I've dealt with companies before where their software was outdated just because they didn't have the funds to upgrade them, because they were charging too little for the web hosting. So it's important to understand that, yes, you can get hosting for maybe $5 a month, but then you have to look at it from the business perspective. Why are they only charging $5? how is that going to impact me long term?
Yep.
So the hosting, as I said, anywhere from I think $5 up to several $100s. The next thing is the SSL certificate, and that's become a lot more important in the last couple of years. So this is where your information gets encrypted when it travels between the web server and the person who's looking at the website. So, for example, if they're putting in their name and their email address because they want to subscribe to your newsletter, it's important to have the SSL certificate so the information gets encrypted and it can't be stolen easily. And SSL certificates, sometimes they're included as part of your hosting. And the costs vary depending on how secure the certificate is. In our case, for our basic SSL certificate, we charge about $132. For the more advanced SSL certificate, for people that have shopping carts and for people that are entering credit cards, you're looking at around $220 per year.
Just on that, I just want to say, because this is one of the little things that I've learned and the technical stuff that I need to show off during the show, that I've learned something about websites. With the certificate, there's a little padlock that goes on to the top of the URL. When you put it in, you can tell that site is secure. So if you come across a site, and I think if you actually run your browser across there, it'll pop up that it's not secured. And I think a lot of the browsers nowadays give you a notification that you're entering a site that's not secured, right? So you're getting a bit of a pre-warning. But if you click on the humanity.com site now today, you'll see that we're fully secured and our certificate is in place, folks.
Well done. Yeah, no, it's true. And it used to be a few years ago, you only needed the SSL certificate if you were collecting credit card details. These days, Google looks at your website, and if you don't have a SSL certificate, as you said, they do display in Google Chrome, they display a notice that says not secure. And you can potentially even lose ranking within the search engines, because that's one of the key things that they're looking for, secure websites. They're trying to protect their visitors.
Okay.
So that's the next cost. Then the one after that is obviously the website design. If you're working with a developer, and if you're getting anything below $1,000, I'd probably say run.
Yep.
Only because as we have gone through the step-by-step process, there's a lot of work involved in building a credible website. If somebody says they're going to create you a website for $300, they're probably working for $2 an hour, and you have to then question, why am I getting it so cheaply? So a website will depend on the complexity. If it's just an informational website, say 10 pages, in our case, we charge around $1,700, and you get a whole lot of things other than the information. We install plugins and things like that, security plugins and things like that. So have a look at what your web developer is offering and maybe ask for a package and that sort of thing. But for most small businesses, you're looking at, say, between $1,500 and $3,000. Now, I'm talking in Australian dollars.
Yeah,
so,
that's important. Yeah. It's not pesos, yeah?
Yeah, so you might have to convert that. But yeah, in Australia, that's generally how much you will, for a small business website, $1,500 to $3,000. That's generally it. If you want like e-commerce shopping cart and you've got 200 products or 1,000 products, it's going to be up to, say, $10,000. But for most small businesses, it's not that.
Look, I just want to talk about, again, our own experience with this, because I just want to reiterate our journey that we went on to get to where we are now. When I first started the podcast 14 months ago, it wasn't going to be a business. It was a hobby. And that's why I grabbed the Wix off the shelf, thing to put together, because I had no claims whatsoever that I was going to turn this into a monetized business opportunity, right? So depending on what you're doing, and you know your own journey better than anybody else in whether it's your hobby or whether it's your business, whether it's a corporation that you're starting or whatever. Sometimes there's horses for courses. there's certain things that work all right. But I'm glad that we got to that stage where once we'd made the decision that, hey, we're going to turn this into a business, this is serious, we're going to get people helping us and doing all this sort of stuff, then it makes sense to go into that world of doing it properly, right? And putting the credibility behind it and all the rest of it. So I just wanted to mention that because a lot of businesses start out of being hobbies. A lot of businesses at the moment start out people sitting in their bedrooms at home, their lounge rooms with their computer open going, what can I sell to the world? And they haven't gone into that fully fledged business mode yet because they might be just doing this as a pastime because of COVID-19. But a lot of people are also realizing, hey, this is a business opportunity. I can turn this into something grand. So that's when you need to think about budgets of doing all these sorts of things at the cost of entry into the business, as you're just talking about, Ivana, when it comes to website.
And you know what? I mean, people sometimes they go, well, that's a lot of money to spend, like, say, $1,500 for some people is a lot of money. But if you think about it, back in the days before the internet, if you were going to set up a shop, you needed $100,000 to fit out the shop.
Yes.
Now it's like $2,000 and you've got your business up and running. And it's true. Sometimes people do need to go on that journey and they need to go and start with a Wix website and create it and just so that they can process it and come. And that's perfectly fine. But I think, if you're working with a developer, what happens is you've got to sort of, you can either go from point A to B in a private jet, or you can get into your little Toyota Corolla and you can navigate it yourself. And it might take you a year or two. If you're going with and I like to think of myself as a co-pilot, because obviously I don't know everything there is to know about your business, but I know a lot about website design. And so it's a partnership. And so you and I had many discussions, and even with Louisa, I would question you, but then you would always have an answer because you understand your audience much more so than I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so it needs to be a partnership. And I think, if you are serious and you want to make it a business, then make it a priority to get a developer or a designer to create it for you. So you can jump on the private jet and be done with it in a couple of weeks.
Great metaphor.
If you do it yourself,
love it.
It might take you, a few months. So that was the website design. So the next thing is this, the costs involved. There may be memberships. So there's a lot of software, for example, MailChimp, if you're wanting email, or something like GetResponse that allows you to send out newsletters and that you can integrate. So there might be memberships that you have to pay for, and that they go for anywhere from $20 to maybe $100. A lot of marketing gurus and experts, they use something called Infusionsoft, which allows people to take their own journey on the marketer's website, and it's very through email nurturing, and everything's automated, and so it allows people, like if a person clicks on this, they're taken to this particular page, or they're sent a particular email. So there are systems that allow you to automate your business.
Right.
But you're looking at, and for those ones, you're looking at between sort of $100 to $300 a month. Okay. So that's something else that you need to allow.
Yep.
If you're not good with writing, you might need a copywriter.
Mm-hmm.
And those ones are not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want a proper copywriter, you're looking at, maybe $1,000 to or $3,000. And then, of course, there's marketing, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. And finally, tech support. So a lot of designers offer maintenance packages, which means you pay maybe $100 a month, and then you can have an hour of their time per month where you can talk to them about questions that you've got, or they can update the website for you. But tech support is important, especially if you are updating the website regularly.
So there's a lot of things out there that you can, take on yourself and do. I think having a designer in the game with you is paramount, because you're going to get the expertise, you're going to get the result that you wanted as well. Because there's nothing worse than doing it yourself and then going, oh, I don't actually like that, at the end of the day, or it doesn't work. Like, it's not bringing me customers, it's not giving my users the experience that I want them to have. There's nothing worse than having that as well, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where your business, it can make or break your business.
Yeah.
Because it all comes down to the user experience. And I think, I would never think to go into a court and represent myself. I'd rather pay a lawyer, and I pay an accountant because they've got the experience. They've been doing it for a long time. And the same thing with your web developer. And one thing that I do want to say, I have had a couple of people, they come to you and they ask for your advice, you give it, and then they turn around and they do it however they want it themselves. And so I just say, if you are paying a web designer or developer, listen to them, listen to their experience. And if something doesn't feel right, ask the questions, ask why you're doing it this way. And they will tell you. And then it's up to you sort of to come up with a plan that makes sense to both of you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And our last question for today is?
How long will it take to create a website?
We should have started off with this one.
So this is how long is a piece of string. So I've done a website in a week from start to finish, but I've also had a client where it's taken 12 months. And so a lot of the times it is people get distracted with other things. So it really, in my case, in most of the time, it's not sort of for me how much time it takes to turn it around. It's how long it takes to get feedback. So I might have sent you the layouts, and if it takes you 2 weeks to get back to me and say I want layout 1 or 2, then by the time I do the next lot of changes, another month may have gone by. So the faster you get back to your developer, the faster your website will be. And the other thing is, it's a good idea to have a discussion up front with your developer and say, I need the website, say, done in a month. What do I need to do to make that happen? And he will tell you.
There's a lot of onus on getting information to the developer as and when you need it. And again, referencing our website that you did for us, we've been able to, in conjunction with yourself and Louisa doing all the back end on our side, we've been able to get it up and running in a month. So I guess in terms of, since we did our last show and I made all the big predictions that it was going to be a week, we did it in a month, and that's because, one, we prioritized it. We got back to you with information as soon as you asked us for it. We took this on board as a very important project for our business, and therefore we dedicated the time and effort to making sure that it happened. So, I'm more or less comfortable to say that if you want to do a really good job, check out humanity.com. That's the minimum amount of time, I would say. We were pushing it in some angles to get a month, to get it up and running in a month, and we're happy with that. But I guess in terms of if you have to spend a bit longer, do it, because it's worth it in the end, right, Ivana?
Absolutely. As long as you're communicating with your developer then and making progress, then you're fine. And it may take, it may take 2 months, but just keep it moving. Don't sit on it, or don't sort of make it a priority, I guess.
Okay, brilliant. A long episode today, folks. We've shared a lot of information with you, so I hope you've been able to stay in tune with that. There's been a lot of fantastic information that Ivana shared with us. We're going to put a lot of this in the show notes again, so don't worry, you're not going to miss out on what we've shared today. Check out Humanity's new website, which is now live at humaneity.com. The links are in the show notes today. And you can start knocking down Ivana's door now, because she wants some more business. And once you see our website, you're going to say, wow, I want one like that. So
I'll have what she's having.
With lots of pizzazz. We've got a website with pizzazz. Thank you, Ivana, for that. So listen, great to have you back again. You're going to be back again in a month's time, and we're going to be going through, do you know off the top of your head what we're going to be talking about next month?
Let me have a look. No, I haven't quite decided. I think we're going to start talking maybe about the design and choosing colors and things like that. But I'll have a think about it, and maybe we'll post something ahead of time just so that people know if they're at that stage of their website development.
Yeah, brilliant. And also, if you're sitting out there watching or listening in today and you've got questions about anything that's come up in this episode, and I know that you're all going to go back now and watch the first episode, and you can ask Ivana or myself those questions, and we'll make sure we come to the party with the answers next time around on the next show, which is going to be in October. Gosh, we're racing towards Christmas. So you want to get a website up and running before Christmas? Now's the time to get started, isn't it, Ivana?
Yeah, absolutely. And Christmas is actually a really good time because things tend to be, we've got a little bit more time because we've got time off work and things like that. So, yeah. So if you need a website and if you've got any questions, just send me an email.
Brilliant. Have you enjoyed your time today, Ivana?
I did, but you know what? I just kind of feel like we've given them so much information, and I can see the glazed over looks and like, oh my God.
Well, I think that's important because that's the reality of building a good website.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah. That's a good point.
Well, listen.
So thank you so much for having me again. It's been such a pleasure. Always so much fun talking with you.
No, you too. And again, everybody's going to go and check out the Ivana Katz premier website at humaneity.com, and we can showcase that to the world. And I'll see you again next month, Ivana.
Sounds good. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.